On the 90s, era of hypercolor and neon, when the Bulls were a good basketball team, when Jason Statham still had hair, and when video games were seen as a thing that existed only to cause harm to our youth.
Yo, video game dudes, talk to me!
To incite us to violence, or even worse, sloth. But among these mind-numbing gore fests, there existed a whole genre of games meant not to rot, but to enrich, where the whole premise of video games turning our kids into couch potatoes was attempted by some educators to be turned on its head as they tried their very damnedest to try and make learning fun. And you know what? A lot of the time they succeeded. I mean, some of the classics of yesteryear, the games we remember most, are those edutainment games. For how many of us is 1995 more memorable for the Oregon Trail 2 than it is for Rystar? And a lot of PC games of the era did have something of a tilt towards the more cerebral. Even Doom had its puzzle to solve and its secrets to find. I owe PC games of the 90s for a lot of my current interests and personality. Mostly being an insufferable know-it-all, but we can't win them all, can we?
Dude, what do you say? Polygamous? What do you mean, like a three-way between the farmer, the woman, and the pitchfork?
One of the most prolific companies turning out this titillating tutelage was Sierra Online. Granted, they were one of the most prolific studios of the 90s period, churning out such classics as King's Quest, Space Quest, Everything Quest, and the inspiration for this little project I've been working on, the Dr. Brain series. Dr. Brain started with the Castle of Dr. Brain, the, brainchild of the Coles, a husband and wife duo most well known for Quest for Glory and Hero's Quest at Sierra, who have been working on turning some traditional puzzles into more computerized versions of themselves. It quickly became the foundation for a puzzle-based adventure game targeted at, depending on who you ask, children or adults. But then again, I also remember them saying Space Quest was aimed at children, and they don't call it Moon Logic without a reason there. So, in between Quest for Glory 2 and 3, the Coles, largely Corey with his passion for puzzles such as Mastermind and other logic games, created what would become one of Sierra's most well-known series of the 90s. The Castle of Dr. Brain launched in 1991 to some actually stellar reviews, with Computer Gaming World calling it one of the most entertaining agglomerations of puzzles ever stuffed into a single package. After the success of Castle, the Coles went on to do a sequel, Island of Dr. Brain, which got less great reviews, where the short turnaround time was noticed. It wasn't for a lack of polish, but rather because the puzzles wound up overwhelmed by word puzzles. Future titles in the series found a better balance, but the word puzzles are definitely something that are a mainstay of edutainment, and that's where the project from this video comes from. One of the later titles in the Dr. Brain series, The Lost Mind of Dr. Brain, was actually my first introduction to it. While the local library had Castle and Island on floppy, let me know in the comments below if you also remember the Wild West time before DRM when you can get games from your local library. Lost Mind was something I had gotten from the inner pages of a Scholastic Book Fair catalog purchased alongside the newest Magic Treehouse and Matt Christopher books. And even though it was just another one in the 500 CD binder of mostly $1 shareware collection, Lost Mind, like some of the best edutainment games, stuck out to me. It's one of those games that I, even now, every so often, load up a Windows 98 machine to play. Lost Mind also has the distinction of being one of the last games released before Sierra was sold and merged with Davison and Associates and then Bendy, and well, good news is a lot of these games may wind up on Game Pass now that Microsoft owns them. I think the world would be a better place to see a lot of these classics from Sierra show up in a package on PC Game Pass. And, like its predecessors, Lost Mind reviewed pretty well. I mean, as well reviewed as any edutainment title can be. While the adventure game aesthetic was done for just having a central map screen that loads you directly into a puzzle like any activity center, and, well, the plot is uninspired at best. For what it is, the biggest complaint about this game is that it's repetitive. It's just not that bingeable. But when you think about it, these games are not really designed to be played in long spurts. These were the games bought by the quote-unquote good parents, who, as Pepperidge Farm remembers, actually attempted to limit screen time. When you only get an hour of computer time that must be shared amongst your siblings, even if you only have a handful of games, you're still only playing the same game once in a while. These are the games meant to be played for maybe 20 to 30 minutes at a time, and when you play them like that, they really are gems. Even a complete run to Oregon and the Oregon Trail only takes about half an hour or so, which results in you being able to play them in a single free period in school. Or, in most cases, the limited time you got before your parents forced you outside to go drink from the hose and, play. And when when you look at them as something that you only get a little bit of at a time, in an era when the primary focus of our childhood television was to still sell us physical toys to rot in landfills rather than virtual toys to rot in e-waste, Lost Mine, like its compatriots, the Super Solver series, the Clue Finder series, and to a certain extent the Jumpstart series, is an amazingly competent work. There really isn't anything outstandingly negative about it. It is exactly what it set out to be, and that is something that we don't see enough of in games these days. Everything now has to be this Skinner box that keeps you playing for hours and hours on end. Even casual games have gotten away from their role as a thing to do while waiting for the train, or for 15 minutes when your day jobs are really making you want to go back to smoking. And now instead they're designed to keep you there playing for hours, always spending the next dollar. And honestly, I miss that era of games, when shareware was the main time to advertise your works.
Through shareware? Shareware is a distribution method, and it's primarily a way of distributing full-function demo discs. Users are invited to share the full-function discs with all of their friends and to use them in the comforts of their home.
When Egghead Software was the place to go to find the newest thing, at least for our parents who sat there unknowing of the wonders of BBSs, where we had 3.5 megabytes to fit a program, and some managed to do it in less than one. When things were new, and what we could do with the definition of a computer game was still somewhat up in the air, and you had art pieces such as Myst mixed in with Doom. And this brings me to this project. 90s Edutainment did a lot to teach me how to be an insufferable know-it-all as a child, and I figured I would continue to use it to teach me new skills I've always wanted to learn, one of which is coding. I have definite memories of Learn to Program Basic teaching me the basics of Basic, but I never seriously set myself to it until a few months ago. And in those few months, I've come a fairly long way and actually kind of have something to show for it.
Yeti 7 in their latest video. Now, we've got Media Man ready to roll with their new way to program your computer.
Cool, Goo. It's basic.
My goal for this project will be to take some of these 90s classics and see what it takes to recreate them. I'm not going for one-for-one copies. The puzzle this game is based off of, for example, gave you the words you were intended to find. This version is how many points you can score in 60 seconds. They're not going to be AAA budgets. I'm doing this on a 2018 ThinkPad, and I hate bursting out my mouse. I don't have a graphics card, and I've got the attention span of a gnat. All these games will be released for free on itch.io, as well as probably from my website, that I will finish at some point. All of them are open source, so you can see my horribly hacky workarounds on GitHub, and see just what horrible habits being self-taught teaches you. I'm aiming to accomplish one of these a month, where you'll get a little history of what it is I'm recreating, a review of the original game, and then, well, my take on it. I've been searching for a project to get me out of tutorial hell, and discover that if there's one thing I'm really good at, it's absolutely biting off more than I can chew. It's always been a bad habit of mine, and has never made itself more evident than when it comes to learning how to develop games. I managed to create multiple ideas that have all been completely, beyond what a solo self-taught dev who's only just finished what is essentially baby's first Flash game is really capable of doing at this moment. Not that I'm not working on, say, a fully physics-based Panzer Dragoon knockoff where the main focus is breeding dragons to create the best you can, but I also want to be able to say I've actually finished things as well, rather than doing what I always do when it comes to long personal projects and getting bored and wandering away. That's kind of the purpose of this. It's, the how is baby formed of games. One step beyond printing Hello World to the console, but it is a finished game. It's got a title screen, a game over screen, and it functions mostly the way it should. I mean, we're gonna say that the way that sometimes horizontal words need to get moved an additional time to recognize it, and the way it doesn't recognize axe despite it being in the dictionary, is intended behavior. It's taught me some basics about how to create primitives. Although I did do a little bit of that just messing around trying to write baby's first shader, before I realized that attempting to write shaders on something that only has integrated graphics is an exercise in hilarity, and probably an exercise in house fires if I keep going. And it's taught me how to rotate arrays, how to load scenes. It's been an actually useful project. This whole series will be an attempt to recreate games that just by the sheer nature of the limitations provided to them had to be limited in scope. When you have just one singular floppy to fit everything, you can't really try to fit in every feature under the sun as much as you may want to. That's why I'm sticking to these 90s games, and even just little segments thereof. That's also because many of these games are forgotten about, abandoned, derelict. If I can revive even just a little bit of interest in these little casual things that are designed to be little time wasters that don't leave you feeling dumber for having played them, then I will have accomplished really more than I set out to do, which was just learn how to code, but I'd certainly be happy about it. And honestly, for teaching me how to code, this game's doing a great job of it. I really did develop a bunch of skills with this, even though, well, it looks like this. But my goal wasn't to make a AAA title, or even something amazing that would take the world by storm. It wasn't even to make something good. It was to create a game in 1 month that is actually playable. And, well, task failed successfully. I do have other ideas for titles to do for this, and have already started making progress on Pipe Mania, but violent. So, enjoy Blockwords, a little puzzle game inspired by a puzzle from the lost mind of Dr. Brain, where the goal is to score as many points as you can in the time allotted. If there's any interest, I will see about redoing this in JavaScript with HTML5 to be playable in browser, and if you like this idea of seeing a solo dev's take on redoing 90s games with modern tools instead of Borland C++ for Windows 3.1, please like, comment, subscribe, and hey, maybe if I get viewers and whatnot, I might actually be able to get a halfway decent computer. And as I spend more time getting, well, good at programming, maybe they'll stop looking like shareware titles from the 90s. Thank you guys so much for making it this far. Thank you for watching. Peace out. Have a great day.